Now, we wrap up this session with a full-length presentation, so we are done with the fast-paced lightning talks. And our presenter is Matthias Hatschke. He is an IT security and network infrastructure specialist with a strong focus on NIS2 compliance, also an active member of the German National Standards Committee. And today we will learn how we can incorporate NIS2 and ISO 20001 in our daily operations. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. So we do just compliance, just all the techie stuff on the compliance side. So yeah. So if you want to have more information about the NIS part, read our articles in the IX. So I think I don't do a deep dive about NIS2 today because it's 2 years in the world. So I think not really new for all of you. But just some latest news we got from the Bundesnetzagentur last Monday, a new security catalog, which changes everything from right to left. We expect that this is the draft version. We think it will go now fast to the final version. We expect it around February. And then we have 1 year time for adoption. So keep in mind to rebuild your security concepts next year. And on the other side, we will see that's the parliament seating this week about the NIS2. So we expect that NIS2 gets one of the final stamps this week. It has to then go to the Bundesrat. But this is the important steps to go next. And yeah, we are now 1 year late, or more than 1 year late. We're already in thinking of getting fines from the European Union to being late. So let's see if we get it this week done. What is NIS2? NIS2, from a techie perspective, is not much. So it's 10 measures you see here in the paragraph, so in the second piece, A to J. That is the technical measures you have to do with NIS2. That's it. So that's pretty basic measures you have to do. have risk analysis, do incident handling. I mean, you typically do that. But the important point is, I mean, we already have it in the telecommunication law, but here explicitly state you have to implement state-of-the-art. So, and that's not handling any more out-of-service boxes, for example. That's not state-of-the-art, for example. And on the other side, not on that slide, if you don't do that, your management gets in trouble because they can be fined in their personal pocket. So, and that's the important part in the NIS2, where we expect that hopefully something changes, because when I'm as an auditor around, I always see typically not the base people are the problem to get convinced doing stuff. The most problem is the top management to free resources to even have the right mind in place that it's important to get off legacy, to make things streamlined. So that's the majority problem, and this law will help us because of the big fines which are in place, if that's not. Today I will focus on the state-of-the-art, and just on a tiny piece, because we have to have security network and information system in acquisition, development, maintenance, including vulnerability, handling, and disclosures. And from my point of view, what I see as, even as auditor on ISO 27001 is it's always missing in the basics, and one of the most basics we have is asset management. So we will see later, if you don't have it in your asset management, you can't backup it, you can't make configuration management, you can't do vulnerability management. And who of you is pretty sure he has 100% in asset management? 100%, that sounds good. 90%? 10%. I saw this company and they already have 2701 certificates. So even this certificate does not mean that they do a good job. They perhaps have a good auditor, but if it's good security, I doubt it. Okay. So what is the negative side, and what is it, what you see on the compliance and why it matters? So, and what's typically in the company, compliance is thing that you draw in bureaucracy. We always have these discussions. Oh, and next law NIS2, and we have even more compliance stuff to do. This is just baseline security. There's no fancy KI star, AI stuff in that stuff. There is no, it's just really basic stuff you should do. So there is no bureaucracy from my point of view. And even if you implement it well, it even will streamline some of your processes because then you have single source of truth and stuff like that. We will see, you have documentation. Who has good documentation in this carrier? Who needs more documentation? Who needs less documentation? Yeah, and there the right point to find of the documentation. That is one of the keys, I would assume. So compliance is not a project, it's an operating mode, and the idea is not to do it once a year. Whoa, the audit will come. I was working, and now I can talk about it, I was working a lot of years ago at Vodafone, and even, you know, this connect tests, where they test their mobile networks, and that was always around autumn. And 1 month before, the test will be next month. Let's go! So that's like the audit. So doing nothing for 11 months, and then doing a lot of stuff in 1 month. That's not you should do it. It must be in your daily work. So documentation is fully disconnected from operation, and we will see the glue's just missing. So, and when we do audits, we always see, when we speak to the tech people, with small checks, how many asset elements you have in that system. Does it correlate with your risk analysis? Does it correlate with your assets in the other? And then you just count, and you see, oh, there's missing 20% or 30%, stuff like that. That's often the case because of, do asset in Excel? Who's doing asset in Excel? No one here. That's pretty nice. Well achieved. So, that's the other part, moving to the DENOG talk, perhaps having that in Excel. So yeah, that's the symptoms we have. Always even duplicate documentation across teams. So no really strict documentation policy. What is important, what is unimportant. We have policies which are just for the auditor. So no value add. So why we have them? If there's no value add, then the question is why they are there. We have this panic before the audits. And typically, it's focused on parsing, not improving. Because if you look at the ISO norm, it has a PDCA cyclus, which is focusing on steadily improving. And if you get that mindset, that you don't have to be perfect in the first year. So you make your destination in your policies, and then you can evolve every year to this destination, and you just bring in transparency, which helps you to stay focused and even show your management. And this transparency is now the key to your management, because they have to sign this transparency. And then they exactly know where are the risks in the networks, and they are personally reliable on that. So perhaps that will change something in the budgets and in the discussion of priorities. We will see in the next years and in the next ransomware attacks and stuff like that. And for me, security is not the latest AI stuff. It's the chain of the base stuff. It's the important thing. So how we can do that? do continuous improving in small steps, and that you not can do, oh, I have that big new ISMS tool and that solves all my issues. No, you have to find small tools which you have small improvement every year, and that's not a big bang thing. Have a single source of truth in all dimensions. There's only one documentation for one stuff in one place, and that's the important. Document once, and what we discovered is, and there I will show you within the next minutes, document once, but write with max machine readability. So we discovered when we do documentation, we do it in the meantime with YAML, for example. And then you see that in the first time it's just for the people, but then you have the ability to do automation on top of it. So it will then improve over the years, but you don't have this big bang development 2 or 3 years and then get a small improvement. And the accountability is important. Who is responsible for what? That's often, and typically you have in that field two roles. You have the business guy who is responsible for example, for the HR system, and then you have the IT department doing for the implementation, but this accountability is really important. So this is this Reiki-based accountability. We need all this. With our standard tools, we already have in the companies. So track your open stuff in your ticket system. Typically, all carriers have ticket system. Just use it. Also for the compliance tools, use the tools. The people are already used to it. Not a new extra tool for this purpose and for that purpose. Reuse the basic stuff and make it just work. So what is now the focus on the asset piece? So asset is bound by invisible glue, you can say. So typically you have a process, which can be a product, which can be your HR process, which can be your network management process, which has requirements about availability, about scaling and stuff like that. So this is then directly related to the services providing that. Here in the for example, a service as an example can be your DNS service, which has perhaps high availability requirements on that side, but the confidentiality perhaps is not as high as your human resources data. So depending on that, it comes down from the process using. So then you have the DNS system, the service. So the services are typically applications you run your company in, not from a service perspective as a network carrier. Then these kind of services run on some machines, on some systems. And if your service needs special high availability requirements, then it's important that the systems below also support that. Typically, what we often see is that even for the most unimportant system, the services below are maximum of high availability with a lot of complexity and stuff like that, which is not even necessary. So there's also the trade-off, make everything extremely high availability, have multiple stages of systems. I mean, that directly correlates with the costs later. And for the security on that side, systems need to be in rooms. So I mean, you have the most expensive Proxmox cluster, for example, in a data center sitting where the doors open. So then from a security perspective, that does not really make sense. So this directly somehow is glued together, and the room is in some facilities. So everything has a dependency to each other, and to make this dependency in your asset is one important key. So you don't have to repeat yourself, because when the process needs the SLA of A, then the service below has to inherit that, for example, typically. Any question to that? If you like, you can ask questions. Okay, so what we typically do is, from an asset perspective, we see a lot of different asset tools around, and that's good. Because on the type of the assets, it can be a different tool which helps your departments to handle the assets. So there is no need from a compliance perspective to have all assets in one system. So, but from another side is, if you have open source tools, for example, which are good made for special asset categories, use them and just have, for example, we typically use a Rumba because that's one of the only free available GSC tools, which then links this asset group is handled there, this asset group is handled there, but then we have the central point of the glue where the risk management happens. Then we see, for example, why we have people assets. So we have your laptops, your mobile phones, your whatever licenses on your laptop. Say, for example, you can use a snippet where it then even handles the process of handling, giving it out, collecting it back from your people. And then you have one tool, easy to use. Other things like MDM can also handle your assets, because if you have your laptops in the MDM system, you don't have to have it explicitly in another system again. So think about a single source of truth on that, where it can handle perhaps even the snippet can be communicate with the MDM system, so you have this extra information there. Then Netbox is gorgeous for physical hardware and virtualization, but then it stops. Defining services in Netbox is not the, perhaps someone did it from you, but that's not made for that. So I will, in a minute I will show you how we glued that together. And you even typically have a lot of stuff in the cloud, which also needs to be managed somehow, which is another part of your, I would say, physical infrastructure. And what we typically use is when we do stuff, is we do a lot of stuff in YAML. We do it in Markdown to handle it easily. All these approval workflows are done in GitLab, because you have a Git even for configuration management or other stuff in your company. Why not using it also for your compliance? When you do the people, when they change something, they do it in a branch, then you have a merge request, which is an approval workflow. Done. I don't need any extra boards or stuff like that on that. So let's jump, for example, in the service catalog. So what it is, for example, I have here a service catalog, which is our, oh, it does not show up here. Give me a sec. Is it big enough, even for the last rows? Okay, cool. So that's how we document, for example, from a service catalog perspective, our ticket system. It's a service. So we see this is validated to a JSON schema, which is also here in the Git repo within. So even this format of the service catalog, which is part of your asset management, is easily changeable. So if you have another type of information you want to store, just change your JSON schema. And we even see here, if you make any mistakes, it directly tells you, there's something strange, please change it. And that helps to make a proper documentation on that. So all of these compliance teams, who is asset owner, who is the asset owner, what type of information is in the service. You have confidential information, public stuff. I mean, the website would be then marked as public. Then other stuff, which you also need for compliance, not especially for security, is your GDPR personal information. Typically, you have another system where the asset is stored with your information about your GDPR personal information, just stored on this asset directly, so you don't have another piece of asset in another database where this information is stored. So when do you need to delete stuff, for example? To which process does this tool belongs, if there's a special process? This is the glue between the layers I showed you. Where will be the service deployed? So we even do everything with Docker Compose files, and yeah, that's our host where it will be deployed. Then this is the URL where the service will be handled. And one of the nice stuff to get your people doing stuff. So from us, the DNS entries are automatically built from the service catalog when it's merged to main. So if your admin wants to bring in a new service, he has to do the documentation, because without doing that, he wouldn't get a DNS entry. So some small things will help you within that the documentation is done. And if it's done like that, it will help you to even do some checks that it is the reality. And even with your single sign-on or your used authentication mechanisms, this is the important parts which you see later that helps you to get an overview which application is handling the stuff how, and you have every information in one piece. Your SLA, your metrics, how your metrics are pulled from the application, how is the logging done, what backup procedure is used for that kind of service, and important stuff, how you do the vulnerability management, because we have to do vulnerability management, and that can be done in multiple ways. But one way you have to have is you have to trigger your newsletters from your vendors and stuff like that, but you have to prove that you have done the stuff. So here we see what we did, that these information will come to our ticket system. We will see the documentation URLs. So for our users, this has no user documentation. And here's just a link to the vendor documentation. If you need any special things on top, you can do it below in Markdown. And so you have a small piece which glues it together, which is in the moment perfectly human readable. That's the absolute minimalistic. You can have the JSON schema validation, which says, okay, it's at least something is in there. You have with GitLab the workflow that it can do the 4 eyes principle. Done. That's all the documentation from a compliance side you need for a service. That's it. And you're done on that side. So from our side, if we make a new service, so an engineer creates a new service in the service catalog, the JSON schema gets validated, then it creates a new branch with a service in the GitLab, then the merge request is opened, merge request is approved, merge is done, CI builds the DNS entry, and even due to the service catalog, it will be also, the whole repo is just zipped and sent to all admin per email. So we even have a backup on each laptop if we have emergency cases and need that information on that. So basic tooling you already have in the companies, which does the most of the compliance stuff, not with any overhead. I see a lot of companies having extra paper folders which need to be updated. Then you are you find outdated information. It's horrible doing stuff on that side, manual. Yeah. What we have here, so the takeaway is embed your complaints into your daily work. Don't do it once a year. Focus on traceability. So if you do it, for example, everything in GitLab, the traceability is there. You exactly see who did it, the approvals, what happened. Even if I'm in the VS Code, I see that my colleague Tobias did that change 4 weeks ago. So that's really easy traceability. And even have, you see, you even have Harvard help here what is allowed to do with just really basic toolings. Okay, so that's from my side. If you have, we have some minutes left for questions.
Thank you. So, questions? Here. Start here.
It's Christoph Schellers from TELUS Networks. Thanks for the presentation. I have just a question regarding maybe small businesses. So is there any threshold for implementing the NIS compliance from a government perspective or regulation?
From a regulation, if you're looking on pure non-TKG regulated company, it's 15 people, 50 people or 10 million revenue. No, Umsatz is revenue?
Yep.
Umsatz. But depending on because you are part typically on the Lieferant management, on the supply chain of other NIS2 companies, they need to enforce all the rules on their supply chain. So even this will shoot in very much faster because they have to change their supply chain policies. So you will then if you're not compliant, no one will buy from you anymore. That's okay. the problem of the non-NIS2 companies.
Okay, thanks.
Could you turn on the other microphone?
Ich glaube, der ist an.
It's not, it's muted.
Jetzt. Yeah, Christian Frömmel from Charité Berlin. The question, I have two questions. The one is Snipe It? Is it production grade ready for a large number of assets? And the other question is, why do you do this distinct, or in your example, a distinction between the servers in Netbox and the assets in Snipe It? Because we have lots of virtual servers which could fit in Netbox. We have lots of hardware servers and hardware things like laptops and such things, which we do in Snipe It. Where's the distinction between these two things?
That I try to do as people asset. Every asset which is assigned to people, it's better, for example, doing it in Snippet because it even implements the workflows. So when you handed it out, he gets an email, he can do that, I got it, and stuff like that. And you even have the history, who had which item in one time. So this is all auditable, which you typically don't have in service. There's other stuff important. In Snippet, you can't document cables in a proper way. So that's better done in Netbox, for example. So that's where you have your domain-specific features, and that you should use. It's production ready. The question, I think, a snippet is nothing if you have a company with whatever 200K people working on. That I doubt it. But up to 1,000 people, I would say.
Okay, we have 24,000 employees, so
yeah, but
maybe
you have to double check on your side. I mean. Okay. But for us, it has APIs, which is important from us. It can't do single sign-on. All application we use is done on single sign-on. So that are from a security perspective, also some important facts.
Hi, this is Malte with the Baader Bank. I understand as soon as you would be a transit provider for me and would offer a DDoS protection, you would come in as a critical IKT service provider. And therefore, as long as you are a company of any size, you would fall under the DORA service extensions. Is there something else for you to do if you would comply to NIS2?
Give me a second, because the important point here comes in with the new Bundesnetzagentur document which I showed you from Monday. Give me a sec. No, it's not that. Give me 1 sec. Here it is. Link on. Schiele ich hier gerade? Ah, da. Da ist es. So. What? Ich hab's.
Du hast auf der Seite was gefunden, Gratulation.
Ja, das ist always a challenge, you know.
It's a real skill.
So, but the important point here is here they chase you in 3 categories, and more or less, starting with 10 people, you are in the world. Welcome.
Okay, but maybe you should have that discussion over lunch. You wanted to do, is yours quick?
Hi, it's Frank from Internetworks. You said there should be only one truth, source of truth for documentation. Do you have like advice on what to do when there's 6 sources?
You start typically with, we call it a document pyramid. And this document pyramid exactly describes what hierarchy of documents you have, what exactly you have a glossar, which kind of document means exactly what it is. And then you have to slowly start typically from the top and then start changing it over the years. You can't do it with one rush, but you have, in each layer of the pyramid has to have one place to store the stuff. And that's the important thing. And then you can manage it. I typically, if you are more on the tech side of the world, for example, for us, Markdown does the job. I don't need extremely hard wikis. We do everything in Markdown, check it in the GitLab, done. So, but depending on the people who are using it, perhaps you have the marketing department, they won't use Markdown, but then they can use Word documents. But this is then another kind of information. And you have this central gateway where it directs you to the proper information and who is also responsible for that documentation. That are then, so this Racky thing I showed you, that's really important on that, because you have it outdated, and even please delete outdated documentation, because that's bringing you, or bring it to an archive folder somewhere hidden behind. But just make it and really think about what is the absolute minimum you need to have, so that where we came from to the YAML, that's the absolute minimum, because the admins won't do more.
Okay.
From our experience.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure you will be found by people.